Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. Welcome to the Headspeed Oxetic 2.0 Headspeed 2024 MP Mid Plus version. That's the standard edition. That's where you're going to see in most players' hands. There's also a Pro version. There will be a separate review about that one. That's 1820, more weight. So if we look at the specifications of the Speed MP, which is endorsed by players such as Novak Djokovic, he's playing with something completely different. I have his personal frame here. I've talked about it many times on the channel, so you can have a search for that frame. And we have Jannik Sinner, who's using a slightly older Speed, but it's definitely more similar to this version than Novak's racket. And there's many other players using some form of Speed. It's Head's best seller, and it's for a reason, because it's kind of this racket that suits many types of players. 60-90, but not crazy spin, not crazy power, not crazy control. But does most things well, really. That's where the balance is of this frame. So that's why the Speed is so popular, besides also obviously having these players like Novak Djokovic primarily endorsing the frame. So the new Speed MP has something called Oxetic 2.0. What we've noticed with Oxetic frames over the 360 plus graphene rackets is that they feel a little bit softer, but still a bit more stable, so it kind of refines the feel. That's something I've felt with pretty much all Oxetic rackets. Gravity, Prestige somewhat, a little bit more solid there, but I missed some of the flex. But for pretty much all the other generations, Radical, Extreme, etc., I think the Oxetic has been a good progress in the headline. And 2.0, you feel even more of that. The racket is actually quite a lot more dampened. I think you will definitely notice a difference, despite the mold being the same, from the previous generation to this version. And obviously the cosmetic is not a huge change. They're not taking huge risks these days with cosmetics. You do have the Speed font here a little bit different. Sadly, I taped the... I don't like grip tape with logos, so please stop doing those. But the Oxetic 2.0 makes a big difference, because the racket feels more dampened, a little bit more solid. Sweet spot feels more generous. However, for my game, I feel like the MP has a bit too much of an open string pattern, and that's something I struggle with. On paper, it should be a racket I really like, and I do play pretty decent with it, but it's something that where I just prefer the 1820. I've tested this frame with head hawk power at 23 kilos, 51 pounds. I would need to go up a bit to get a bit more control. Like I said, the launch of this frame is a bit higher than I remember from previous generations, but it is the same string pattern as the previous one. So I do struggle a little bit with the launch of this frame. I would love a 16-19 with a bit denser pattern, and I would consider it better for my game if they went back to the 22mm beam of the Speed that Jannik Sinner uses. But obviously this has a little bit more power, a bit more solid, and it suits a wider group of players, and I can see why they like that. So this is for sure a good racket. It will be a bestseller and keep being a bestseller. However, it's not made for me. It's made for juniors, for intermediate players that like a little bit less power than these typical pure drives, pure arrows, and these kind of frames produce, because the stiffness is lower, the beam is thinner, and it's more of a balanced frame. It battles with the rackets maybe like the Percept 100, which is another good stick, a Prince Tour, ATS Tour, Babolat, maybe a Pure Strike 100. So it's in that kind of between category where you had 100 square inch, but it offers a bit better control than what you're maybe accustomed to with 100 square inch rackets. So that's the new Speed. It's a good frame. The update was felt, but with these latest head rackets, they've been playing it pretty safe in terms of cosmetics, in terms of playability, and there's no really wow how different this is. But it does feel like they enlarged the sweet spot a bit. Feels a little bit more solid, but also a bit more dampened or muted, which is not everyone's cup of tea. You can dial in a little bit that with string tension, maybe go for a hybrid with a multi or gut. Could open up a bit more feel from the frame. But I did feel like the racket feels a tiny bit more dampened with Oxetic 2.0 over the 1.0. That would be the major difference. A good stick for baseliners, guys or girls who play like Jannik Sinner, want to control from the baseline. But you can also be an all-court player. It kind of suits everyone, this racket. But it also might not be for you who are looking for more precision, more spin, more power. So it's definitely a racket that's in between everything else pretty much on the market. So if you don't know what to buy, maybe get a Speed, because it's going to suit a lot of players. I have some personal things that I would have liked more with the denser pattern, but then I can go to the Pro, which will be fascinating to try. And I hope you watch my review of that one. So a solid update. I tend to repeat myself with these head releases. They seem to be improving the rackets ever so slightly. It's a small update, but they are getting better. They're not getting worse. The muted feel might not be everyone's cup of tea here. So that is a little bit of a difference, but it's not like you don't feel the ball at all. It's just a little bit more dampened. This has a 500 on it, and that's one thing I wanted to point out. That is their CPI scale, and that goes from 100, which is the lowest power, to 1000, which is the highest power, and the F500 is in between. So it's definitely a racket that falls in between everything, and it does a good job of pretty much everything, but it didn't wow me in any way. It's just a pretty solid and consistent thumbs up every year they release it. So that's it about the Speed MP. I'm really keen to hear your opinions. Have you tried this new Speed? What do you think about it? Is this a line that excites you? That's it for this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please check out tennisnerd.net for your guide to tennis. Everything tennis, not only rackets, strings, shoes, and whatnot, but also news, stories, analysis, predictions. I'm a tennis nerd, and we're trying to put as much love into that website and this YouTube channel as possible. Thanks to you who support the mission on patreon.com/tennisnerd or through a YouTube membership. Have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.